In this video, I will show you how to make a simple glass material in Blender for Cycles and Eevee. Well, this is the result. In the background you see a red cube and some stones. And here is a UV sphere with glass material with some reflections. And here is a plane with glass material. And now let's start. At first, I will put the light a little bit over this cube. To do this, I click on this Y here for front view, and then I press the N key and switch the location XYZ to 0. After that, I choose a higher value for the Z axis. Now you can see the light over the cube. Well, next I will position the camera. So I mark the camera and set the location to 0 and also the rotation. Now I put the camera higher. I use this move tool to move the view, and I try the camera view. And if you have something like this, it will be okay. Next, I will add a plane and a UV sphere. I choose Add Mesh Plane. I press G and Z and put the plane a little bit higher. And then I press GX to put it a little bit to the left side. I choose Add Mesh UV Sphere and press G and Z to put it a little bit higher, and then G and X to put it a little bit on the right side. Now I press S and scale the UV sphere a little bit down. I try the camera view. I press the button N, and if you have something like this, it will be very good. Now I turn the mouse wheel and switch to Rendered Viewport Shading. I press this little triangle next and switched off Scene World. And here I choose an environment. I choose this one. This name is Sunset. This is a 3D picture around our scene. I will choose the same picture under this world property symbol. I switched on this yellow button here next to color and switched environment texture. I choose open. I choose the Blender program file, then the version number, then data files, studio lights, world, and sunset. Now I choose this camera icon for the render properties, and under render engine I choose cycles. If we render this scene, we can see the environment picture. Next, I want to create some material, and the cube should only have a simple material in red. For the material, I open the shader editor and press New and name this material Simple Red. I turn the mouse wheel and set the base color to red. Well, I do a little mistake because the UV sphere was marked, but it's no problem. I'll take this symbol here and put it on the cube. Now we can see the red cube and the light Next, I will make the glass material for this plane. I select this plane, click New, and give it a name like glass. Here in the Material Output node, you can see all. Well, maybe later we choose material for Eevee or cycles. But at this moment, we have all. I press the mouse wheel and set the transmission value to 1. You can see our plane is a little bit like a milky glass. So I choose the roughness to a value something like 0.1. So now the UV sphere should have the same material. So I put this little icon and drag it to the UV sphere. For a better view, I will move the UV sphere a little bit more to the left. I press G and X to do this. For a better quality of the UV sphere, I press the right button and choose Shade Smooth. Now we have a very good glass material. We can see here in the UV sphere the cube like through a lens. And we also can see a little bit of the environment HDR picture. We can also see here our plane with the glass material. Now I will save and render the scene. In the render result, we can see some stones from the HDR environment picture. We can see our UV sphere, and we can see our plane, and the glass material is fine. If you want, you can save the render result with image, save as. To prepare the next rendering, I will choose another slot and switch here to slot 2. And then I close the window. So with cycles, it's very easy to make glass material, set transmission on, and set the roughness to something like 0.1. Now I want to switch the material output from all to cycles. Well, nothing happens here. And now I can copy these two nodes. Well, I select the first one, I press Shift, select the second one, and then I press Shift D for duplicate. In this duplicated material, I set the output to Eevee and in the moment the settings are the same as for cycles, so roughness is 0.1 and transmission is 1. Now I switch the render engine from cycles to Eevee. And now we have a problem. Well, we see a little bit reflections of the environment picture. Maybe also here in the plane. but we cannot see the transmission. We cannot see the cube. So we learn we cannot use the same material for Eevee. We have to do some corrections for Eevee. So first, I go down here at the settings for Eevee to this screen space reflections. I activate this. Nothing happens. I open this triangle and I activate refraction. Well, here is an R in this word. Nothing happens. Now I go down to the material properties. Well, at the top, here you can see the same as here in this node. But I go down to settings, and here you can see screen space refraction. I will activate this. Now we can see the cube in the UV sphere, and we can see the cube through the plane. But the shape of the cube in this UV sphere is not like the shape in Cycles. Well, let's compare the shape maybe of this line here. This is Eevee, and this is Cycles. So we have to do some other corrections. I will go back to Eevee. In this principled BSDF shader, I go down for the IOR value and set it to something like 2.5. Well, I tried this value, and I think it's a good value. I think we have nearly the same as in Cycles. Well, I will save the file now and compare then Eevee and Cycles. So this is Eevee, and this is Cycles. So I think we have nearly the same. I go back to Eevee and will render the result. Well, rendering with Eevee is very quick, but we can see the stones from the background, the HDR image. We can see the cube in the UV sphere. We can see reflections of the sky in the UV sphere, and we can see the plane with our glass material. I save the render result. If we choose slot 1, we see the Cycles result. If we choose slot 2, we see the Eevee result. Well, in this area, you can see some difference. This is Cycles. This is Eevee. But I think this is the best possible result.